Delighted that we've got Andrew and Malati with us. They're from National Geographic. I'm going to hand over to Andrew. He's going to take us forward in the first part of our conversation.
Thank you, Lord Dr. Hastings, and welcome everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm a National Geographic Fellow where I work to support young people taking action to protect our shared planet. I first became interested in solving problems in my community as a teenager, when I first started to notice that if you were poor or if you looked like me, you received a lower quality education. Along the way, I met with principals, superintendents, lawmakers, and even several governors. I quickly learned that while some adults did not take me seriously because I was just a kid, I could make a difference by doing my research, standing up for what I believed in, and refusing to back down. The National Geographic Society uses the power of science, exploration, education, and storytelling to illuminate and protect the wonder of our world. The truth is, the future facing us as young people in this world has never been more uncertain. At National Geographic, we are focused on how we can support young people and foster the movements, organizations, and inventions you and your peers are already driving. You see, us young people notice things that adults don't. That's why it's important that we become leaders in our community. We can solve problems that are too hard for others to figure out. And this is true everywhere. In every corner of our world, there are young people stepping up as leaders to identify and to solve problems facing our shared planet. Take National Geographic explorer Malati Wyson, for example. Malati is an 18-year-old environmental activist, is half Indonesian and half Dutch, and was born and raised on the island of Bali. She is currently a high school student at Green School and a member of the World's Oceans Day Youth Advisory Council. She is passionate about activism, the environment, humanity, youth empowerment, and women's rights. And we are lucky to have Malati joining us today, particularly on World Environment Day, to share her advice on how you too can lead efforts for change in your own community. Welcome, Malati.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share more about my story and watch along as we take part in this global classroom.
And Malati, just to kick it off, I mean, you are from maybe the most beautiful place in the world, if I do say so myself. Can you tell us a little bit about your home? What first opened your eyes to the beauty of what it had to offer, but also our need to protect it?
Yeah, for sure. I do agree. I live in one of the most magical places in the world. I grew up in Indonesia, specifically on the island of Bali. Indonesia as a whole, we're a country of 17,000 islands. So if you imagine all of the different languages, every island had its own culture and tradition, tribes. And the one common thing we all had going through these 17,000 islands was the ocean. So growing up on the island of Bali, I don't know if you can hear it now. It's quite late, but sometimes when I fall asleep, I can hear the ocean from my bedroom. I can hear the crickets and the frogs. So nature was always a really big part of growing up. There was no escaping it. Nature was our playground. We would run through the rice fields, swim in the river, and swim in the ocean. So when, because of this deep connection to the environment, it wasn't rocket science when we started seeing single-use plastic end up in places that it shouldn't. Plastic pollution was everywhere. Growing up, we could suddenly start to see the beautiful places, the beautiful beaches, the beautiful areas of our island become destroyed with plastic pollution. Indonesia is one of the second largest source of marine plastic pollution in the world. So we decided to take action. And it was as simple as that, honestly, Andrew, from just seeing something in our local community, a small action that we thought we could do was stand up for our island and start taking action by creating a movement to say no to single-use plastic bags.
And Melody, what I love so much about your story is that you saw a problem and you didn't wait for someone else to solve it, but tried to figure out how is it that you and your fellow young people could contribute to the solution yourself. And I think that's really inspiring. So we have a question from a listener now. Moana, a grade 8 pupil from Calorie School in Nepal. Let's hear from her.
नमस्कार, मेरो नाम भावना भण्डारी हो। म युनाइटेड ओड स्कुल नेपाल कल्लेरीमा कक्षा 8 मा पढ्छु। हामीले हाम्रो स्कुलमा खेर गएका प्लास्टिकका बोतलहरूलाई प्रयोग गरेर पढ्ने सामग्री र डस्टर, मार्कर, इरेजर, पेन्सिल हाल्न प्रयोग गर्छौँ ताकि वातावरण सफा होस्। तपाईको विद्यालयमा प्लास्टिकलाई कसरी व्यवस्थापन गर्नुहुन्छ?
Wow, it's super cool to see how we can be really creative with the plastic after we use it. And I think, to answer Moana's question, thank you for asking it. There are lots of things, for example, here in Indonesia, what I've seen a lot of the communities in smaller islands doing is actually collecting an empty plastic bottle, filling that up with all sorts of thinner plastics with less value, and filling that up real hard so that it becomes a brick. And with this, a lot of students are creating structures. We're seeing benches also to put out in the garden. So I think there are lots of creative ways that students can utilize plastic and turn it into something. We've become a living example that kids can do things. Me and my sister started at 10 and 12 years old, and that means you can too. So our team in Nepal is led by a group of youngsters. We have 50 teams around the world in 29 countries.
Wow. I think that the point that you keep making, Melody, about starting young and how that's evidence that other people can start young is really an important one. And I remember when I first got involved with activism as a teenager, I was looking to those young people who were maybe slightly older than me, but who inspired me in the work that we were doing. And I did just want to give you the chance, Melody, to speak to any other kind of young change makers that have inspired you in your work and that you look up to as inspiration.
Yeah, I think if we move forward to the next slide, the one thing that I wanted to mention here as well is that sometimes when you step up with a new idea, it can feel like a very lonely space, like you're all alone. And one thing that I've learned again and again, and what inspires me, are all the young people out there in all corners of the world that are taking action for their passion. Some of you may have heard of Greta. Others may have heard of Malala. Some on Shutescut. And maybe some of you have heard of Boyan Slat. These are some of the incredible young change makers that inspire me, that lead by example in their own communities, not all about the environment or plastic pollution, but others about education, youth empowerment, bringing a message through music. There are lots of different ways that we can find our role in the world. This is really where our new project and a new passion of ours has developed into Youthtopia, where we want to create a platform where young people can come together, learn and share from each other through peer-to-peer content. Because I think that there is something special when you can relate to something, when a young person comes into the classroom and tells you the story of how they made a difference. You suddenly see yourself, you see a future or a potential to become that person and actually create change. And Youthtopia will share all of those change-making skills, public speaking, leadership skills, how to talk to government, how to research. And so that's really, Andrew, connecting with all of these young change makers around the world on a continuous daily basis with over 250 young change makers is really what makes me feel inspired.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story, Melody. Your advice, words of encouragement, and personal reflections are all so insightful and inspiring to me, and I'm sure many of the people watching. Like I said at the beginning, our world is facing unprecedented challenges right now. A global pandemic, a climate emergency, and a refugee crisis, to name just a few. And while all these challenges take different forms, all of them require the passion, creativity, and urgency that young people bring to the table if they are going to be solved. We need leaders who embrace what comes naturally to young people. The belief that you've never achieved it all, and that there's always room to grow your passion and explore new parts unknown. So thank you again, and to those watching, don't forget to check out some of the other exciting discussions Global Classroom has in store today and in the future. And with that, I will hand it back to Lord Dr. Hastings.
Wow, thank you so much, Andrew and Malati. You are insightful, inspirational, amazing, and wonderful. Thank you for the beauty of your messages, and we deeply appreciate it.